the path. Watch where you are going. These words you see are only growing. You hop, skip, or jump into the game of life or death. You look this way or that, or wander from the given path. You can be almost an angel or purely a devil. You can give out warmth or embody cold evil. You can walk with your neighbour or on ahead. You can lie in your teeth or mean what you said. There was opposition in the Development Corporation to the job. To get it through, they said, well, look, this artist can do a whole range of things, you know. So I hustled together a few bits of stuff of graphics for the interview, knowing full well that I'd never do it, you know. My name is David Harding. I was the town artist at Glenrothes Development Corporation, the town of Glenrothes, contributing to the external development of the town. Now, a few months before that advert came, that I saw in the Scotsman, I wrote to towns in Scotland saying, why don't you employ me as your artist? But I didn't write to Glenrothes because my architect friends said, oh, don't go there, it's a architectural backwater, you know.
So in terms of public art, David Harding's quite unique in this country, although subsequently Glenrothes had other town artists. He was the first one, and really made his mark on the town, helping to create an identity for the people that lived here. It was the second new town in Scotland after East Kilbride, and as such this was just after the Second World War, and he arrived 20 years into the project when a lot of the infrastructure was, the main infrastructure was in place, and people were living here, but needed something that they could, I think, call their own. And he seemed to do that extraordinarily well.
The sculptures signposted parts of Glenrothes as well, and that's what they became that. Sort of, you know, I'll meet you at the mushrooms, or I'll meet you at the, you know, and those sort of things. That is actually quite unusual, I think, probably for well, anywhere really, but
because without necessarily the road names to reference in these pedestrian areas, it was a bit more tricky to negotiate. And then these become works that people are passing every day. So it's nice to think that these are not sculptures that are up on a plinth in a civic context. They are integrated into people's working lives, everyday lives.
And the theme, as you can see, of course, is mining, fishing, paper making.
Yes.
So you got the paper coming all the way through all of that. And any other, there's electronic symbols, you know, because there's a big emphasis on electronic industries.
Was the coal mining already a part of history?
Absolutely. When I got there, it had flooded.
Right.
The reason for the town, the raison d'etre for the town had gone. Yeah. This massive mine that was to, you know, employ 5,000 people or something, just gone. On the north side, I've actually written a few names, and these were the men on the building site who actually created the West Freeway. So their names are there. And when the clerk of works and the civil engineer heard that this time the concrete was coming up, and it was going to, the names of the workmen were going to be cast into the wall, they came running down from the site hut with a bit of polystyrene with their names on it as well. That was our original building, that one there. when I arrived. I had an office in that square block at the end.
He was integrated with the planning department and the architects, and so was really there at the inception of many projects, or certainly there in the early stages, so that his contribution could be discussed and dovetailed into the grand design.
There were no budgets. I had no budget at all. But when you think about the fact that in each housing contract there would be money for play areas, landscaping, pavements, and that sort of thing. These were able to be used for artworks, sometimes.
David Harding was friends with my mum and dad's because they were artists and they were all kind of seen as being hippies in Glenrothes at that time, so they were quite friendly. And I remember going to their house, and they lived in a house in Glenrothes, and it was just an ordinary sort of one of the wee boxy houses in, I can't remember exactly where it was. Going into it and just being so inspired because they had put on the ceiling, and it was quite a low ceiling, but they put in the ceiling the purple paper sort of cardboard bits that you have when you buy a box of apples. And they must have collected loads of them, and they'd covered the whole of the ceiling with these beautiful sort of indentations. And it was just so inspiring. I was only about 14, and I was just so inspired by this. And that kind of inventiveness and just seeing things in a slightly different way. He's brilliant.
I wanted to live in a council house, to experience what council house living was like, and try to respond, through that. Again, it's identification, that I wanted to be part of the town, part of the community. So
he knew just where to pitch the art, so he wasn't going for anything too conceptual or threatening, but at the same time it was very forward-thinking from the developer's point of view. The Glenrothes Development Corporation put him in place. They really gave him a free rein.
I suppose in many ways it's homage to our Celtic history, and to popular culture at the time, Dylan and the Beatles, and Pele, of course, and Gandhi, Solzhenitsyn. So it's in the form of a spiral, which is more Celtic than, the stone circle people, because there's a circle. This is a spiral. Well, I once came here and saw the children playing around, and they had developed their own ball game, which was you had to hit the ball on the top of that, and then it goes out a space, and they're all running around. They had to catch the ball. So they had invented this game around it, which was nice.
Fantastic, yeah.
Created their own play around it.
Well, these mushrooms are rather wonderful. They are in their original state, so they're not painted, and they show, I think, Harding's facility with the material. He was trained at Edinburgh College of Art working with concrete, and he could really make it do the most extraordinary things. And I think they probably looked quite different when they were fresh out of the moulds. But over time, they've weathered very well. There's very little in the way of damage to them. And they just have a wonderful, fantastical quality that's quite unexpected.
I still love the hippos. I thought they were genius. And I remember, seeing young children on them, but also as teenagers sort of hanging about on them and sort of sitting on them, and just they're part of, the kind of they were just part of the town, really.
Well, of course, the hippos are really the work of Stanley Bonner, who was my very first postgraduate apprentice. he modelled this hippo, and we worked together to take a cast of it in. But Stanley left, of course, after a year. And I still had the mould, single mould, because it is all from one mould, all of the hippos. And so I used it in different areas and different contexts, you know. That green circle was a paddling pond, and the river Leven is there. And of course it's polluted with the paper mills. So these were the hippos looking for fresh water. So they got rid of the paddling pool. They've vandalised the hippos down there by painting them. So there are a bunch of hippos going nowhere. It's crazy. And so all of the decorative forms here are elements of Ionic, you know, Greek, Egyptian, up there the Egyptian, you know, up there, Greek, Roman, classical fragments. And that's why it's called heritage, you know, that this is what was in the past and this is what we got now, this office block. It's not heritage anymore. And in fact, I asked them to destroy it. Yeah, rather than move it. Yeah, because it's contextless. It was designed for that particular site. And my theory, of course, is the context is half the work. It's lost its critical element, that's it. It's lost its critical element. It's a decorative bauble. But it is quite a lovely aspect that they've chosen, I think, because of the view here. Isn't it marvellous? This view, sort of looking over the town park.
David Harding was able to use spaces within residential developments that, because of the nature of the plan, would really only be seen by the people that lived there. They're pedestrian areas, so you'll go around the town on the main circulatory roads or the arterial roads, and you'll see waymarkers and some large public sculpture. But his pieces are mostly integrated into the residential communities.
So people would say to me, "Oh, I went to Glenrothes, I couldn't see any work." I said, "It's not for you. You've got to go on safari to find it. You've got to go and look for it." They're embedded.
So much of contemporary public art is intended to grab our attention and to be used as almost a branding exercise. And Glenrothes, certainly Harding's work in Glenrothes, is completely the opposite to that. It's for the people that live here. Anybody else who gets to see it is a lucky guest, I suppose.
And this is what we call a desire line. So the people made the path in the first instance, and I just came along and paved it. I think it was 90 slabs it would take to do this. I asked Alan Bold to see if he would write a poem that would, the first half of which would be read on the way to the shops, and the second half read on the way back. This earth moves you through dark days and bright nights. As you stand still on one of the sun's satellites in perpetual motion, through space you spin round. You can feel the emotion, your feet on the ground. So though you are rooted, you can never stand still. You make this your heaven. you can let it be hell, be it fair or bitter, cold. This is true by Alan Bold.